The world is facing an outbreak of coronavirus pandemic. In the Gambia, though, the pandemic comes with an outbreak of bribery and corruption in the health sector.
The Gambia is a special case.
My name is Mustafa K. Dabo. I am an investigative journalist. There are reports of people selling negative COVID-19 test results. I am going to investigate that.
Using undercover reporting, Malagan exposes how some medical workers are accepting bribe in exchange for negative COVID-19 test results. Are the authorities aware?
Evidence is the problem. We just hear I was in a program, people are saying it, but it's difficult to get evidence.
What is at stake?
The consequences it can have on the health of the locals, it could be devastating.
It all began with a tip-off from a source who requested anonymity.
Tip-offs are the lifeblood of investigative journalism. For me, a name, a contact, and a brief description of the situation are quite sufficient to establish a lead to follow.
There's a deal. The results are ready for pickup.
Today is my appointment with Dr. Nyasi. He is at the Golden Beach Hotel. That's one of the places being used by the government as a quarantine facility. I am posing as a buyer. The COVID-19 negative test results are for a couple returning to the United States. He's never seen them. He didn't test them either, but he's got the results anyways. So I'm going to meet him.
So it's just like a copy of them. So we need to put it in the system. But that's no problem. So it's like a copy of. I don't need copy of the platform. You need copy of the. They are different than that. They are internal. So, yeah, that's what the problem. So be there with the seven. Friday. 7.
Yeah, 7.
Okay.
So this is from.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Oh. Yeah, that's it. I think most of them, they know. They only take from mouth and the nose.
Yeah.
No problem. I just want
Okay.
I know you cannot get it.
Getting a COVID-19 test done was free of charge, but it can be a nightmare. People form long queues to have their blood samples collected. For travelers, the long, boring wait is not the only problem. A positive test result is bad news. This presents an opportunity for healthcare workers to cook up negative test results, especially for travelers. To understand how big this apparent network is, we began following new leads. One name keeps coming up. He is Lamin Sane. We had even obtained a leaked audio recording of his transactions.
This should be 6,000 old. Then I collect your sample. But if I don't collect your sample in this way, I have to liaise with somebody at the lab. Okay. You understand? Ningala sample collect. Over 2005. But ningala sample collect. So data manager and no finger. No problem. Yeah. So but confirm your names and your date of birth. Then make sure everything is fine. And that's the result. This year negative. Alright? Good. You're happy now?
Now, we needed to move in on Lamin. We hired a journalist who went undercover. He told Lamin that he needed the results for himself and his cousin. This is how the conversation went. Our undercover reporter is meeting Lamin to collect the results.
Lamin, sir, my jahalo be more fala ba. Na cousin sister yen call le fa ba. Wow. So, this is authentic, right? No, because we are passing through Senegal and it's really difficult. Okay. So, how to call it? I have my siblings.
Yeah.
They are already here. Two of them. They're from the US. Probably they are going back either Wednesday coming next or Thursday. So I don't know how person can help us.
Okay, let them contact.
Probably I tell them how much. Because you are telling me those in Europe probably different. You are telling me probably.
Yeah, because you know you were supposed to give me 4,000 for the two.
I know.
You know, but because you pleaded that things are not okay.
Yeah, it's fine. So how much do you think?
They can pay the same amount,
The same
2,000,
amount.
2,000 for each
2,000
of them.
each.
Because if I want to make everybody, if I want to make it this way, then there's nothing for me there also.
For you there.
Because you see this money, 1,500 is going to somebody.
But this is from
It is from the National Commission Health. Yeah, I work there. Yeah.
Thank you
because
very
I'm-
much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We left Lamin hungry for more deals. And as long as there is demand, he is ready and willing to cash in. So, we sent another undercover agent. We wanted to know who else is involved in the trade.
You know, one or two people will also be involved so that the whole process will not fail. This is why I charge 2,500. At the end of the day, 2,500 is shared between me and some other two people.
Lamin processed 3 COVID-19 negative test results for us. He pocketed $5,000 from it.
This isn't about people not getting good pay. It isn't a case of traffic police officer who takes home less than $50 per month taking bribes. No excuse for that behavior, of course. The point I'm driving at is that, like many medical workers, Lamin and Nyasi have 2 full-time jobs. But we also give Lamin, for example, a second chance. So this is about well-trained medical workers violating the ethics of the noblest profession, profiteering from a crisis, endangering lives they are meant to save.
Lamin Sane and Nyasi are not the only ones involved in the illegal trade of selling COVID-19 results. There is a Seydou Cisse.
Seydou Cisse is a nurse at Kanifing General Hospital. I got information from multiple informants that he was selling negative results. I made contacts, posing as a buyer. Cisse admitted doing it, but told me he stopped after he got arrested by the police, so he couldn't help.
There is a Babukar Jallo.
It was Seydou who shared Babukar Jallo's contacts. According to Cisse, Jallo works at the airport but has good contacts at the National Public Health Laboratory. When I contacted Jallo, he said he was away.
And there is a Babukar Sow.
Babukar Sow is a record clerk at Kanifing General Hospital. He was one of those arrested with Seydou Cisse. So admitted doing it in the past but said he could not help now. We could go on and on and on. The network seems massive. Lab technicians, security, data clerks are all involved. The trade is lucrative. This is a time that diaspora and tourists pour in and out of the country. So the demand is huge. The supply is always there. But there are those who would not sell the results despite our approach. One such person is Mustafa Kwanti, a public health worker we approached at the Independence Stadium.
Corruption has been reported to be an acute problem in the public health sector. COVID-19, it appears, presents a perfect storm.
That minority provided a list. In fact, when you look at the list and the estimates, it consumed almost the entire $500 million for allowances. That was the suggestion. Of course, we wouldn't accept that. We said to them, it's a non-starter. It went back. They brought another list. That list was so big. We say, where are these people? I said, okay, if this list is big, bring it, let us have a look. We looked at the list. There were names of over 300 volunteers. Nobody knows where those volunteers. That means they are not working in the health sector. So if they are volunteers. Now that also went. We said, no, non-starter again. Remove all the volunteers. Bring the list of the core people. The list of the core people was brought. Some people came together to say, we know the people who are the active players. That list came. We saw names appearing in one section and another and another and another. Then I said no again. Took the list back. Then we went to Kotu, that's where our central operations are. That day, as health minister, I stayed with the team to project because we wanted to give some of them something because you all had their complaints. It was difficult for them. Sometimes they go leave home early, they don't go home early. So we said, let's mobilize quickly to give them something. But we need a list. Now we looked at the list. I was there with them. They projected the names till 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't think any health minister does that in the world. That's not my responsibility. But if I don't do that, what will follow is disaster. Now, we looked at it. As we looked at it, we realized that there were various duplications. That night alone, 300 names were removed.
It has been nearly 1 year since the health minister blew the whistle on the allegations of corrupt practices in his ministry. No publicly known investigation has been carried out. With no accountability, some medical workers seem to spare no efforts to profiteer from the pandemic.
So this particular scheme has also gone through some transition. For example, from the beginning, it was quite easy because there was a form like this that one has to fill. And it was quite easy to get around it. And then the ministry now moved on to something like this. But even before this, they had a similar one, which is also like this. And then, but that it has to have a stamp. What they did was, it was easy to have a form like this, but it wasn't easy to have a stamp like that. So they duplicated their own stamp from their own public health laboratory. And this, we've confirmed this. And so they were using the stamp that they duplicated to print more results and have them stamped, even at their homes. And the third phase of it, which is you would call the stage of perfection, was taking it to the National Public Health Laboratory. Now, this result is actually printed from the National Public Health Laboratory. Not only is the stamp authentic, but we have used this, there is unique COVID ID number, and send it to our contact at the ministry, a very senior level person, without giving the person the name of the person owning the result. And the person came back to say, well, the result ID number you shared with us is authentic, and this is so and so who owns it. That shows it's authentic. And also, in one of our contacts with Lawan Sane, he actually was in the public health laboratory and he had searched our buyer who had previously done a test and came out negative, and he in fact on the phone came back to tell us our buyer's mother's name, which also tells us that he had access to the database at the public health laboratory.
To understand how those involved in the act beat the system that was supposed to be sophisticated, we turn to Ahmed Manjang, a microbiologist.
If you turn up in a lab and you don't want, even if you are positive, but you want a negative result, all they have to do in this place of their sample is to put their water. Just water, that's enough to replace a real sample. So the result will come out negative. What is important, the result have to be run. So basically what these people are running, they are taking government resources. These are scarce resources. They are very, very expensive, and run a test on a sample that was never going to be negative. PCR is highly sophisticated, but it can only give you what you put in.
What are the consequences of producing negative COVID-19 results?
Because of this, our research will never be respected. The consequences it can have on the health of the locals, it could be devastating. Because that particular guy who never turned up in your lab and you give them a negative test, they could be positive. That means they could be spreading this dangerous virus in the community, not only to the general public, but to their immediate family as well.
The police have arrested 3 people allegedly involved in the practice. The police spokesperson Lamin Jai told Malagan the case is being investigated. However, it's been a month now and no one is charged to court. coronavirus is deadly. It has so far killed over 2 million people worldwide and 165 from the Gambia. A good number of those killed by the virus are medical workers who are on the front line helping to save lives. The pandemic isn't over. The lives lost cannot be saved, but a lot more is at risk. And to save them, it's crucial that medical workers uphold the principles of ethical practice of public health.
No.